All right, here we go. We are live. Let us know out there in the chat if you can hear us and hear us well. How you doing, man? Oh, did he not come back yet? Oh, I guess he's a little late. All right, then it's just me for now. But hopefully our guest, as you can see here, Bow-Tied Chameleon, will return. So yeah, it's been an interesting week so far. Lots of good responses from last week's episode, so thank you guys for tuning in for that. Right now, we're going to get things started in just a moment when the co-host returns. I don't know where he is, what happened. He was here just a few moments ago. So, I hope you guys are doing well. For now, we are going to get the show started until the co-host returns. And if he has left me out to dry, which is okay, it's not a problem, we will still talk about tonight's script. So, with that being said, I want to say welcome to Scripts on Saturdays, the only screenplay review show on the interwebs discussing scripts both professional and amateur, circulating around Hollywood, giving you, the TV and movie-going audience, a behind-the-scenes and inside track on what writers are pushing and what producers are buying. I am your host, the Script Doctor, and joining me this week, eventually, is the Bow-Tied Chameleon. Today, we're going to be discussing a very weird and schlocky type of script, at least schlocky in my opinion. And that script is called Die Fast. It's from the last year's Blacklist from 2023. It came in 51st with 9 votes, and it's written by Julian Meiojas, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's not an easy name to pronounce. But this is another writer that's had a number of credits in their resume, starting with working on the White Collar TV series, doing an episode of The Flash over at the CW, followed by Shades of Blue, and working on, most recently, Raised by Wolves. So yeah, it's interesting that we got another screenwriter that is ostensibly in a pretty good standing. So let's see here. Looks like I just got a message. Bow-Tied Chameleon audio is not coming through. He's going to have to reset his mic over in the Discord. So let's see what we got going on here. All right. So you have to go into settings. So this is what happens with Discord every once in a while, is that it likes to change your microphone settings midway without your permission. All right. Bear with us, guys, as we address the technical difficulties that we're finding. There we go. Now we can hear you. Are you there?
Whoa.
Hey, we can kind of hear you.
Yes.
There we go. Hey, how you doing,
Okay.
man?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Well, aside from the technical hiccup we got here, we're on track to
Which
go.
of course I think in the pre-show. So.
Whoa, you're sounding like you're underwater there. If you want to repeat that for the audience, please. Oh wow.
No. This happens once it starts. It wasn't in the pre-shows.
It was not in the pre-show. No, yeah, you're coming in all glitchy.
No, yeah. Here, let me back out of the studio.
No, now you're sounding good. Oh, now he left. All right, let's see. Want to try that again? Nope. Looks like whatever. Okay, now we can hear you.
I backed out.
You don't have to back out. It's just it's perfect. Something's catching up with you.
Interesting.
Yeah, but we can hear you now. So that's good. We can actually start into the show. Or can we? I think you're getting some lag. Are you running anything else besides the Discord? No? Yes? Ooh, wow. Well, it's bound to happen, guys.
I can hear you.
No, I something's not working on your end. I don't think it's your mic, and I don't
No,
think
I
it's the
haven't changed
Discord.
anything since the show.
That's really weird because it sounds like you've got computer lag and computer latency.
No,
No? Okay.
I haven't changed anything since we were doing the pre-show.
Huh. Well, yeah, you're coming in very glitchy. Your sentences aren't being fully captured. That's messed up because we spent a good 25 minutes getting this all in order and it was all sweet. That's very weird. So let's see what we can do here. Okay. Yeah, it looks like packets are being dropped
Yeah,
somewhere
I'm
on your end.
definitely lagging behind you.
Yeah, you've got some significant lag. So you don't have YouTube up or anything else up? Hmm. Well, that's unfortunate because you had some good thoughts to share. I'm not going to cancel the show, but we are going to have to work around this. So let's give it just another minute. Maybe your PC will catch up to what's going on here. So the only thing's changed is that I'm broadcasting. That's it. And that's never affected anything else before. Huh. Well, okay. Can you still hear me, though?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. It seems to be at least 7 seconds delay between the time I finish my sentence and when you hear it and can respond. All right. Well, let's. Okay, so we're gonna have to wing this in an interesting way, going mostly solo here, which is not too much of a problem, just a disappointment because you guys out there are gonna miss some very insightful stuff from Mr. Bowtie Chameleon until we can get this part of his technical issues sorted out. All right. Okay, so let's at least not keep you guys waiting. And Bowtie, when you can chime in, just go right ahead, and I'll be happy to let you speak until things catch up on your end. But for now, we're going to talk about, as I was saying, the screenplay Die Fast, which is on the 2023 blacklist by Julian Meiojas. Scored with 9 votes. Logline is as follows. Following a severe, soon-to-be fatal brain injury during a violent attack, an NYPD sergeant embarks on a harrowing journey of vengeance, which leaves her only a few hours of adrenaline-bursting consciousness to hunt down those who took her daughter and killed her husband before she dies. Pretty bulky logline, and you know what? When it comes to the synopsis that we have following up there, it doesn't really elaborate too much, but for the synopsis, it goes as Elizabeth, or Izzy, as our friends know her, attempts to stop a theft of armored cars on the day of her big promotion. But before she can follow up on her investigation, an old colleague has kidnapped her daughter and framed her for her husband's murder. Now, with only hours to live after being diagnosed with a fatal brain injury, Izzy must embrace her criminal past to get revenge on her husband's murderer and rescue her daughter before her time runs out. So that is the over-encompassing premise of the script, and yeah, it reminds me of Cranked quite a lot. It's the first thing that kind of came in to my mind when reading it over. A couple of weird things that popped into my head. The first being is Izzy as the nickname for Elizabeth. I don't often hear that one. Usually I've got, Lizzie or Beth or Betty. Most of the people I knew that had Izzy as a nickname was short for Isabella. And yeah, that was interesting. So aside from that little kind of weirdness that was going on there, what we ended up having in this script is, it's your general opening. It's got a lot of cliche stuff. She's in like kind of like a bodega, a bodega washroom, trying to basically just on her morning. Trying to oops, here we go. On her morning run to work as a cop, and she has taken a pregnancy test. She finds out she's pregnant with child, and she's just kind of wondering what's she gonna do. It's established as the scene goes on that she's happily married to a doctor whom she loves very much, and she's got a 13-year-old kid, and she's just kind of going about her day normally as a street cop, so to speak. She's an ununiformed officer, so she's got a little bit of rank to her. She's been doing this for at least quite some time. Dialogue is kind of normal. She's got a little bit of a chip on her shoulder, a little bit of aggressive, but she's friendly with some of the people in her life and some of the partners that she has. But she's also a little bit of that kind of cowboy-esque aspect of a cop, the Martin Riggs style cop going on. And she's contemplating, okay, when do I tell her husband? And before she can even start getting into those stuff, she gets a call on her CB saying, "Hey, we got a crime going off in this area." Just at the same time as some big news coverage is coming up, where a renowned criminal named Roman Barlow has just been has just made for his next appeal of like a 50-odd year sentence for robbing a big bank robbery that occurred around 12 or so years ago. And so this is one of the things that's kind of holding up Elizabeth, because this bank robbery had something to do with her earlier career, and with regards to a cop. And so she's very worried that this guy's appeal might actually be granted and he might be set free. But she doesn't have time to think about that, because we are going in at a breakneck speed when it comes to this type of story, which gets us right into an action set piece where as soon as she responds to the CB call to a certain code of a robbery, she ends up meeting a wounded guard who's missing teeth, and he's struggling to stay conscious, and she's doing her due diligence. How many are there? Where are they headed? All that type of stuff. And it goes into this set piece where these armored trucks are being heisted by a small team of guys, and it's your typical lethal weapon type of thing. She's shooting bad guys. She's rolling under cars. She's dodging cars. All this type of stuff. But the bad guys get away, and she's being taken care of by the paramedics when the cliche captain comes in. Of course, this is a 2023. This is from a writer from the CW era of writing. So obviously the captain that's berating her is going to be a woman who's named Weems. She's very disappointed that she didn't wait for backup, that she's being a little headstrong, being a little arrogant, that she's not really into the whole work with a partner, work with a team type of thing. Got that loner aspect to her. And all of this is kind of like mixed in with a lot of other dialogue from other cops. We get introduced to like Omar, who is like one of Elizabeth's sort of best friends, but not quite her best friend. There's no really relationship to them. There's some sort of establishment that Omar is actually the godfather to her daughter, but we're not really getting any. There's no real relationship set up in their entire dialogue throughout this screenplay. We then get introduced to another character, Santoro, who is a female cop, partner of Omar, kind of friends with Elizabeth as well. And, they arrive on the scene to do their report. It's got a lot of procedural, expositional stuff. And it all centers around the fact that tonight, of all nights, is the promotion where Elizabeth gets promoted to sergeant, and everybody's super happy about her. And it's looking like it's supposed to be an all wins type of thing. It really leans into some of the cliches as opposed to going to the last day before retirement. We're going into a promotion, new job, new responsibilities, more pay, and all in line up to the fact that she's just discovered that she's pregnant. So she's now contemplating to herself, how is she going to, or not so much how, when is she going to tell her husband that they're going to be expecting a second child? And the weird thing about this script is that it's kind of long. It's about 110 pages, but it's also structured kind of television-like. It's not quite a 3-act structure. It's also not quite a 5-act structure. Everything is kind of really condensed, sort of set piece by set piece, and each set piece does kind of escalate into the next one. And so our first set piece, as I just said, it's the armored truck heist. Elizabeth is trying to figure out, well, what is this armored truck heist really for? Who took it? What does it have to do? It's kind of strange how they took the armored trucks, but all the money that was kind of around the premises that was going to go into the armored trucks was left alone. So it leads Elizabeth, Izzy, to suspect that there's something more going on. Before she can even get near to following up on that investigation, she gets a phone call from her school. Turns out her kid, Lola, is a troublemaker, so we're leaning into that cliche as well. So Izzy goes to school to pick up her kid, who's been suspended and threatened with expulsion, and the two have a horrible back and forth of just pure exposition dialogue. Lola talks about how her mom doesn't tell her anything, and how she's becoming an adult at like nearly 14, and how she should learn how to drive, and all these kind of weird cliche aspects. And then we find out that she doesn't call Lola's husband Dad because he's apparently her stepfather who adopted her, and so she always calls him David. So now it's like, okay, we've got the establishment of this Roman guy, Roman Barlow, who is making an appeal in court to get out of jail. Such an appeal bothers Elizabeth, and we have a teenage daughter that kind of lines up with the elapsed time of all these events. So clearly, without even trying to hide or obfuscate it, we know that Lola is the daughter of this criminal, and her mom is the cop. So now we have to ask ourselves, well, what's the relationship to this? Was this a cop that was undercover, that had an affair with the man she was investigating? Was there something else going on there? Was he secretly doing this behind her back and it broke up? We don't know, and we're not going to get any of that information for a very long time. So we've got this kind of hanging chad, so to speak, of a story element where, and it's also not a great idea. Oh, hey, we heard you there for a second.
Yeah.
Are you back?
Okay, cool. I think they're here is pretty crazy right now, so I think that's messing with my Wi-Fi. So.
Oh, okay. Well, you glitched out at the second, but you came in clear now.
But the Discord down. So.
Okay, you're sounding better now, which is great because this is supposed to be a two-hander. Yeah. Okay. Let's throw it to you, Bowtie Chameleon. I just did the first set piece. We're talking about.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's still a little glitchy. So I guess
you're doing great going through it.
No, I mean, well, listen, this is kind of the stuff that I do. I'm kind of just going off the cuff from my notes and my structure, but it's usually a little bit easier with a back and forth. But that's okay. Don't worry about this. This is not anyone's fault. It's just happenstance of technology. This is why it will never take over the world. So let's see if we can get a clear signal from you and get some of your thoughts on the first 10, 15 pages of the scripts that you can share with the audience, so we can get into the groove of things. Or maybe not. Nope. Okay. No, that's okay, guys.
Yes.
Okay. Now it's I'm not getting anything through you. Are you guys hearing him? Please let me know, guys, in the chat. I am very sorry. Sorry about the technical issues. These things happen.
I was listening to everything you said, and I agree with you. You know, it's kind of straightforward, and it's just, I don't know, it's very cut, cut and paste.
Yeah, cut and paste would be a very fair assessment. It feels like other people's ideas
Of
just
course,
kind of
now the lights
rebranded.
kicking in again.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels very rebranded. Of other ideas that have been done better than what we've got here, which kind of explains the pedigree, so to speak, if you want to call it that, of the writer based on his credits. It's kind of just going through the motions, so to speak. I'm not getting surprised by any ideas. I don't think you got surprised by any of them either. Yes, Darren, I know it's a bit choppy. That's okay. It happens. But that's just the nature of the game. Can't help it. But we're just gonna plow through. We'll plow through. Well, you know what? This will have to be a shorter show just because of those technical difficulties. But we'll probably revisit this a little bit again when we can kind of sort those out. But for now, we'll just get through the general aspects of it. So really, as the logline said, she suffers a fatal brain injury. So this all happens on the night of her promotion, like the ceremonial event. She's dressed in her police blues. She gets promoted. We find out that her dad is a higher up in the police department, and her dad is also apparently he's a widower, but he's also having an affair with the captain of Izzy's department. So there's no conflict there. So we've got this kind of weird interchanged family aspect going on. Sorry, Bowtie Chameleon, your signal's still getting masked by whatever. But either way, what's going on? You know what? Let's see. This show needs to have a little bit of a salvage, but you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do a rare thing right now, and that is we're just gonna get a backup to help cover it in there. It's not gonna be a replacement, guys. Bowtie Chameleon is not gonna be leaving us today, but we are going to get someone to help smooth this out just a little bit so that you guys get a great show. I'll set this up here. All right, so let's just get this going here. All right, so we'll see what happens in the next moment or so. But to keep the thing flowing and to get things set up, we have the ceremony. While things are going on at the ceremony, Elizabeth, it's pomp and circumstance, all the regular type of stuff. We get finally introduced to David Hughes, who is Izzy's husband, and all we're getting is shared family stories. This is very kind of TV-like writing, where the characters are sitting around a table and they're talking about or reminiscing about their relationships. And we find out that David Hughes, the way David met Izzy is that he removed a samurai sword from her side. As a very strange and ridiculous as this was, that's the story that we're given here. A story which I personally would think is that's kind of more interesting to show than to tell after the fact. I'd much kind of rather figure out what situation was she in that caused her to be impaled by a samurai sword, and how awesome of a surgeon is David to be able to save her from such a bloody encounter. That was kind of messed up. But while she's kind of getting away from the popularity of that, she heads outside just for a breather, and she sees a weird car, an old like an old Firebird, just hanging out front for no apparent reason. And all of a sudden, as she gets near to it, it just decides to drive away. let's see here. So bear with me, guys, as I'm trying to work around the technical difficulties. Wow, look at that. Okay. Okay, we got some static on bow ties, and sorry about that, man. Let's just do a temp on that for the next second or so, till that gets cleared out. Let's see here. All right. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So joining us to help our Bowtie Chameleon friend is TJ Mack of Mac Media. Thank you for helping carry some of the weight here while we get Bowtie Chameleon's audio sorted out. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Sorry, I feel so bad. This always sucks when you have technical difficulties. So, yeah, I was in the middle of all things installing a new toilet in my new basement, and I was like, script, I'll come back you up if you need me. So,
yeah, it's appreciated. I know Bowtie Chameleon appreciates it as well, and we're gonna make sure we can get some more out of him for this show and also in the near future once we get this technical stuff sorted out. I don't want him to think that we're discarding him or throwing him away or anything like that, because that's not the case at all. It's just the way sometimes the internet operates, guys.
it sucks.
I hate how that happens, but yeah, it is what it is.
It's one of the joys of a live show, though. So just roll with it. It's okay.
Exactly. All right. So, TJ, you've read this script, I assume.
I've read the first 10. You guys have already passed where I read to, so
okay. You know what? That's all right. Let's
I jump on. At least I'm here. I'm better than nothing. So I always ask you good questions. So, but I have seen Crank. I love that show, and it sounds like this is just sort of a modern version of that with focusing on female, which is fine if it's done correctly. Which, from what I read, I was kind of on board. I'm like, this could be really fun. So yeah. So that's about where I'm at, is the first 10 pages or so.
I will say this though: the description of the action scenes are actually quite fine. Like they're vivid. You see and understand what's going on. The geography makes sense. Unfortunately, as we get into the climax, that kind of gets muddled, where we're not sure what's going on, who's doing what, where. At a certain point, whoa, we've got what sounds like a thunderstorm outside coming from Bowtie's area. Sorry about that, guys.
Are you back? Nah, it's a bummer.
No. Oh man. He'll be back. Whoops. Let's see where we go here. But yes, so
maybe just turn him down. Don't turn him off. So if it does start working, we can hear him. But I would just turn him down a little.
Yep, I'm turning it. I've only got him down to like 60. Here we go. All right. So yeah, basically, I mean, I will say this: it did have a derivative setup. It had a couple of cliche things. It also reminded me of the opening of Juno. Remember that movie with?
Oh yeah.
I guess it's Elliot Page now.
Oh,
and
yeah, if you want to play that game. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I had to check myself there. So. So yeah, we had some of those similarities. I saw a mix and a mishmash of other films and other television shows in here, and I thought the formatting of it felt like it was TV trying to be a feature film. And again, like, we had this mysterious Firebird car that's out front, just idling by. Izzy walks towards it and then just peels off, and that's that moment that happens. And so we don't get any really further context of that. Instead, the night just kind of ends, and it's Izzy and David just heading home to this beautiful, like, 3-4 story townhouse somewhere in New York. And they're all she's about to tell him that he's going to be a dad, and they're kind of flirting, but they're also having a little bit of an argument over Lola and her near suspension and other stuff. And
missing money, right? If I remember right, there was something else weird going on.
There is definitely some missing money going on, but it has nothing to do with these two. Like, that's okay. The other aspect of it, which is kind of really weird. But yeah, as they're having their little spat out front, a neighbor happens to walk by and overhear them, and of course, Izzy just tells her to go mind her own business. They get inside, they start making out, and then he's like, "I'm gonna go have a shower, get the hospital smell off of him," and she's just gonna go and get ready for bed. And as she's kind of like making her way through the house and getting things sorted out, she goes upstairs, and all of a sudden her husband is basically on his knees, gun to his head. Some of the criminals that she encountered earlier in the day are there in the bedroom, and they're really upset with her. They want to know where the money is. She has no idea what these guys are talking about. And she does the foolish thing where she tries to draw her .38 that she's got hidden somewhere, hidden on her person, and try and shoot the guys to save her husband, which is a dumb move to do. But it's an action movie, so you got to do dumb moves to amp up the stakes.
Right.
And it's kind of a weird thing where like she doesn't get the upper hand. The men overpower her. She drops the gun. I think the husband if memory serves, the husband grabs a gun, tries to shoot, fails, and the leader of this gang grabs a gun and manages to shoot twice into the husband's stomach, and he is pretty much out for the count. She gets into a scuffle, and then they drag her by her hair and then literally throw her through the bedroom window, and she goes flying out. And what's really funny is that the description in this point is like it goes into slow-mo, and the glass is kind of just gliding across her body and form as her hair is slowly. It's like really just silly stuff.
I'm reading it right now. It's actually very well done. It's not overly descriptive, but it's very like it's clear what's happening, and I'm on board with it so far. But I'm also the kind of person that did like Crank, and I loved. Did you watch Boss Level when that came out a couple years ago?
I think so. It's ringing a bell, but I just can't seem to put a face to the lead character.
It's the I can't remember the actor's name, but he played like the he played like the, I don't know, I want to say captain, but it's redundant. Captain on the Captain America, like the second movie or Civil War,
right?
Where he's the one in the elevator, and then later on he's the one that loses an arm and then fights Captain America. It's that actor.
Oh, Sebastian Stan. Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty ripped, but it's basically Groundhog Day meets Die Hard meets, I don't know, The Matrix, and he keeps reliving the same day over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's a time loop movie. Yeah.
It's amazing. I loved it, dude. I loved it. But the action sequences just in the beginning of this, I'm like, okay, this kind of feels like that. So that's how I imagined it, or a transporter type film or something,
Which this is definitely trying to do. Like, that's the one thing. This is definitely trying to be of that type. And it's I think what kind of hurts is the fact that it feels like he's overwriting it for the R-rated action thriller thing, as opposed to just trying to tell a really good story. Because everything is kind of led up to breadcrumbs, but we get a weird type of sidestep story and another entering into a whole new world pretty soon. Because after she's going through the window slow-mo, her head hits basically an awning that's outside their backyard. And then she bounces off of that. She just pretty much passes out on the ground. And the next thing we know is that she's getting we get a little bit of a RoboCop here, where her consciousness comes in and people are operating on her, and then she goes out and then she comes back again.
Yes, and can I just real quick, because I've got the page up right now.
Go for it, yeah.
There's one line, it says, "And that effing Yorkie yaps." So, we, instead of just what I loved the first time I saw like Saving Private Ryan, I think, where we had the ringing sensation in your ears right after a big explosion. And to me, that was like the first one I remember where audio was very differently highlighted as part of a way to experience what the characters were experiencing. Mm-hmm. And I like this imagery on this scene where it's like, and then you hear beep, 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 beep. And then it switches to the cardiac monitor. So we go from a dog barking. I can hear that, the audio engineering there. Go from a dog barking, yap, yap, yap. And then at the same beat, we go beep, 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 and it fades into the dog or into the cardiac monitor. So I like that. I like this. Whoever, this writer has done a fantastic job with imagery without over explaining stuff. And I'm a sucker for that, especially the action sequences like this. It reminds me of the same writer that did the, what was it? The Good Boy or Bad Boy, that script with
right.
the dog,
Yeah. I mean, I will say this: the action description is probably the writer's strength, because the dialogue is kind of wanting, to put it mildly. I mean, there's nothing really inventive. I didn't get a distinction of voices between Elizabeth, Weems, and Lola. There's a little bit of distinction with David, but he's a short-lived character because, again, he's shot. Last time we see him, he's shot twice in the belly. She has no idea what's happened to him. When she does kind of wake up, the specialist is talking to her and saying, "Yeah, you've got a very severe brain injury. We've already drained blood and shunted it, and they've shaved part of her head." So as you see in the thumbnail, you're like, "Oh, she's got an SJW haircut." No, not deliberately. Like, they shaved part of her head to operate on her skull, and they stitched her up with some staples, and all to try to see if they could save her life. But we've got a compressed artery, a whole lot of blood coming in there, but she's also getting these surges of adrenaline and epinephrine going through her system, which is giving her, fight or flight syndrome, essentially. And the whole concept is that what's happening to her chemically is she is going through the motions of, oh, my baby is underneath the car, I'm going to pick up the car to save my baby. And she's got that type of strength, but it's not consistent. It comes and goes.
Okay. So that's what makes it a little unique.
Yeah, that's the gimmick that they're playing into here.
Okay.
It's kind of basically, Bowtie Chameleon was saying before the show, as we were doing our tests and stuff, is that one of the things that kind of hurts the script is that the super strength only ever comes when she needs it. It never comes when it's not of a use to her. So it doesn't ever it's too direct of the writer's hand, as opposed to, oh, it never comes at an opportune time. Like, if she's trying to sneak around, the strength never kind of just surges through her and causes her to expose herself to people she's sneaking around in. We never get those types of conflicts. So it always works.
Like, she's running up a flight of steps and she accidentally skips like the last 3 steps and goes too far and falls off a balcony. Like, that doesn't happen, right?
No, nothing like that happens. Nothing like where she's trying to open a door silently and it just kind of like busts
Rips
through
it off the hinges
or anything of that. Yeah, like nothing
So-
crazy like that, but nothing.
So we're supposed to believe it as a
conflicting.
viewer that it's random, but yet it's conveniently never really that random is what goes on here. So that kind of sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, basically, it's supposed to be triggered by fear or anger. Like, those are the two things. It even gets to the point where one of the doctors, as they're describing her condition, is like, "You She-Hulk out," and it's like, really, we're going there? We're doing that?
Okay.
So, yeah, it's got some contemporary aspects to it, but the whole idea is like, this is going to be the gimmick. So whereas Crank is like, you got to inject adrenaline into your heart and keep it beating so that the poison inside doesn't freeze up the arteries and kill you that way. In this case,
Every time I hear the name of that movie, this just a quick side note here.
Go for
I
it.
just have that image of him doing his girlfriend, like to keep his heart rate up. Like, that's my first image from Crank. Right, the whole show is just insane. But yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's just my brain doing weird stuff.
No,
So keep going.
Now, you know what, that could have been used well in a screenplay like this if that was the type of gimmick. The gimmick here is a little bit of an inverse, right? So she's been diagnosed with this brain hemorrhage that is pretty much going to give her around 4 to 5 hours left to live.
Okay.
And there's nothing they can do about it. Even if they drill another hole in there to release the pressure that's been building up that they've already released from another incision, it's still at most going to buy her maybe 1 or 2 extra hours. So she is basically coming to terms with the fact that she is dead, and she learns that her husband is dead. And this is the part that really kind of lost me in the screenplay, is that the captain and her two colleagues from the police come in, and they are essentially charging her for murdering her husband and kidnapping her daughter, all because the plot says so. Even though the 3 of them don't believe that she did it, they still have to proceed that way because there's no other suspects. So this is the thing that threw me off. It's like you have a pair of cops plus a captain that arrives on the crime scene as we left it, which would be that we have a husband who has 2 bullet wounds in his stomach in the bedroom. He is near a broken window, and outside of that window on the ground about 4 stories down is his wife who clearly struck her head on the way down. How do you, and while the gun does have her fingerprints on it because it was her gun used against them, how do you piece together the series of events where it makes sense for her to have shot her husband and then jump through a closed window out to freedom? Like nothing of that makes sense at all, right? It just
All right, can I play devil's advocate for a
please
sec then,
go
just
right
for the
ahead. Yes.
sake of argument? So I guess what could have happened, what they could have pieced together is she shot him in the stomach. He didn't instantly go down, and then in a fit of defense, he knocked her ass out the window. I think that's plausible. I wouldn't say that's impossible. But like I said, I haven't read this yet, so it depends on how they approach the investigation, right? Like if it's just straight up, well, we have to do this, we don't think you did it,
Mm-hmm.
then it's kind of boring, right? It'd be nice to have some sort of layer there of belief that she did do it. But again, it's one of those convenient things when you're writing. Are they just? It's simple. Just test her hand for gunshot residue. Did she fire that weapon? So it just depends on what level, I guess, of suspension of disbelief you want to,
Well,
attach to the plot.
if they actually gave us a scene where we saw those cops in her bedroom and on her property doing the investigation, you could probably get away with it. But we don't. It's all told to us. So so we have no, like, here's the other part too. Good cops can tell if there's been more than one person in a room during a struggle. There's multiple footprints and stuff. You can't, and especially in a bedroom, not everyone's going to have a hardwood floor bedroom. They're probably going to have carpet, or they're going to have floor rugs, which are going to be trampled on. There's going to be evidence behind, and no matter how much cleaning you do, the cleaning would also raise a big suspect. We're just like, oh, it's cleaned so well, we don't even have any footprints in here. We just have the dead husbands, right?
Right.
And the elapsed time is that it's been 3 days. So she's been unconscious for 3 days. She's been in and out of surgeries. They've managed to keep her alive this long. This is the diagnosis. And the other part, too, is, well, if she kidnapped her daughter and they're charging her with kidnapping her daughter, where is her daughter and why is she all alone in the backyard covered in window glass, unconscious?
Yeah, that would be the big thing. If she kidnapped her own daughter, how did she manage that after, before or after she fell out of this window? So yeah, that seems kind of dumb.
That's part of the suspension of disbelief that holds a movie together. So if you can convince us that we understand why it looks like she killed her husband and that she did this, we're on board. But now what we've got here is the writer has manipulated these cops to be stupid, and now we have to rely on that
so
premise.
Let's put on our writer's hats for a second here, right? So
Sure.
what you could do, this is my first thought, and this is why we rewrite, because the first thought's always, it's a starting point, is you have them when they're interrogating her there in her bed, her hospital bed, you say, by the way, so we did some investigating while you're out. You said it'd been 3 days, right?
Yes.
So we did some investigating. We found we looked at your bank accounts, and we found there was this huge chunk of money missing or whatever. You set it up so that there is this really weird thing about finances are always a good way to go that could create the motive for her to kidnap her daughter.
Yes.
And then you just do that with some quick dialogue, right? Maybe 1 minute. And now we're wondering if we can even believe our protagonist. Is there something else to this that we haven't been let in on yet, right? And then you can create another layer there. So that's just my first creative thought on what we could do here to make it feel a little bit more interesting.
Well, what's interesting is that you've touched on something that does play in later with another character that somehow connects with Izzy. There is a whole money thing involved, because again, that's why the guys are there. They want money. They think she has it. She does not. And they've done this so far. What ends up being the case is, like they're saying, she's handcuffed to her hospital bed. No one is really watching her other than the nurses, but she is realizing like her daughter's missing. She's got to be found. The police, her captain said, no, we found your kid. We took her to David's sister. That's where she is right now. They didn't even put a police detail on her. Like, that's the other part too. I'm like, why? Okay, your parents are killed. The parents are dead. You don't know all the details of it. Maybe you suspect that the mother did it. At least put a couple of cops to supervise the kid with their guardian, so that you're covering all your bases. No, that's not done here at all. Again, as I tell writers, write what you know and know what you write. And if you want this type of situation, you got to figure out, well, what is SOP? What's your standard operating procedure for these types of situations? What is the most cautious means of events that could take place that the police would want to do while they're in the midst of an investigation, right? Those are not done here at all. And so we have Izzy in the hospital who's handcuffed, and she's getting more and more angry. So yes, this is where her Hulk rage comes into effect, and she manages to bend the rails so that she can slide the handcuffs free and free herself. And she does this just as the nurse is coming in, and she scares the nurse, but she's like, I'm not going to harm you. And so we cut away to Weems, who's the captain, talking with Hugo, Izzy's dad, saying like, oh, this is the exposition that's going on. We don't know what's happened. We don't know why she snapped. We believe that she didn't do anything, but we have to follow up, blah, blah, blah. When they get into her room, they see, her vitals are stable, everything is fine. But when they pull away the covers, it's the nurse unconscious, strapped to the bed, and Izzy is making her way through the hospital. Now we've got this hospital set piece where she's got to keep away from all the police in the hospital and other physicians. And even as she's moving around, her first priority is like, she's just got to find out if her daughter's okay. So she's sneaking in at whatever room that's open, finds an operating room, finds an emergency phone, dials 9, dials her kid's cell phone, checks in with her, finds out that she's okay, but everybody's freaking out. And this is the thing that's kind of messed up. So there's a funeral is held for David, and Lola was there, and everybody's sad and what have you. But David's body's not in the casket. David's body's in the morgue at that hospital.
Wait, they had a funeral and it's only been 3 days.
They had a funeral within 3 days. Yep. So
okay,
but the body's not in the casket. The body's in the morgue.
Okay, that's double weird. Yes. Okay.
So yeah, I'm like, wait, this doesn't line up. Why? Who did they bury? Is the writer confusing funeral with memorial? Because memorials are different. Or is it a wake? Like what's going on here? Like things are not adding up. You don't have a funeral without.
You don't have a funeral that fast unless you murdered whoever it is that you're trying to cover it up.
Or he's Jewish. I mean, that's the other part too. The Jewish faith requires to be buried as quickly as possible. But
I didn't think any modern Western funerals were that fast. But okay.
Yeah, I've been to a few. It's quite hectic, but it is. That's where I've learned that. I don't know if it's across all Jewish traditions. In my family, it was a tradition. In some of my neighboring families, my neighborhoods at the time, it was the tradition. If the person passed away, usually it'd be within 72 hours. There'd be a burial and memorial and all that type of stuff. So it was very, very quick.
Yeah, that's got to be that's a lot of pressure to make all that happen that fast.
Yeah.
So, okay, wait, let's pivot back to the script. So here's my question for you, because I haven't read all this, I can't give my side of things unless I skim ahead, right? Which I try not to do because I want to listen to you.
Sure.
So as a writer, let's do a little bit more analysis maybe on this stream, because where do you as a writer go, okay, I'm going to make this genre of film. We're doing a very high intense action film, right? So to me, story takes a backseat, right? Now that doesn't mean it has to be completely stupid and it's so bad it overshadows the fun, right? Mm-hmm. But where do you draw the line? And I know it's probably different now than it was in 1980. But where do you draw the line on go, you know what? Yeah, let's just forget about these little details about this and let's just get to the action. Because there's some forgiveness, right? We can have when we just want to get to the action part of that. So how do you what's Script Doctor's opinion on where that line is, or how do you approach it and analyze that and go, okay, this is where we draw the line and we can move forward and just have some fun with some action scenes now?
Well, the thing is, the whole goal is to not do anything that causes the audience to potentially ask a question that doesn't lead them to the next scene. So they should be asking what's going on, what's going to happen next, as opposed to what just happened. Those are the two questions you have to think about most, which is, okay, I've written this scene. Is the audience going to say what's going to happen next, or what just happened? If you have a what just happened moment, you screwed up and you got to go back.
Like, and that's for any script or just action is what we're talking about.
Ideally, that's for any script, because you always want the momentum of the audience's excitement to follow the momentum of the story. So the moment the audience is like stopped and it start reflecting on things, and it's not part of the momentum of the story, in which case, like in a mystery, you want the audience to stop and reflect on things when the detective character, or whether it's they're an actual detective or someone that's in the position of detecting, is starting to pieces together. That's when you want them to start, okay, main character is putting pieces together. That gives us the time. Okay, we're going to stop. We're going to put the pieces together as well.
Oh.
What pieces is he doing? What pieces are we connecting in? Are we following on the same thing? Are we picking up something that he hasn't picked up on, which means you've got establishment of dramatic irony? Oh, has he picked up on the stuff that I didn't pick up on? Ooh, that gives a curiosity. And then it kind of and it's all designed to drive the story forward.
I'm thinking of Sherlock, the TV series.
So yeah, Sherlock is one example that does that well. Then
they did
you
that
have
a lot, and they'd cut back to things that we previously seen. It's even the same footage, and they would just cut to previous stuff, and it would help us.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we would explore it with the main character. That totally makes sense.
Yeah, there's that
Because
one
then
episode
you're not
between
bored.
him and Mycroft where Sherlock accidentally uncovers Mycroft's plan, where he's been collecting people who have died of naturally, putting them on planes that he knows are going to be blown up by terrorists, in order to.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Not tip their hats that they're able to intercept their transmissions and know what they're going to do. So
if we slow down and reflect, it's okay if the audience is a passenger for that sequence.
Correct.
Then we move forward. Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
for instance,
I like
you'll
that.
see something that is closer to the opposite of that, but is also able to not kill the momentum, and that would be in Die Hard 2. So the aspect being is that McClane's inside the military plane, the transport plane. They throw grenades inside the cockpit. He jumps into the chair and he hits the ejector seat, but there's no ejector seat in that type of plane. But you don't have time to think about that because it's an action set piece that happens immediately. In this type of story, they set up stuff that happens, but they don't blindside you with an action set piece or any sort of other details that makes you forget that happened. It's to the point where it happens so quickly you don't have time to dwell on it. In Die Hard 2, but in this script, it's like this happens, and you're like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, because the movie has allowed you time to process and realize that doesn't make sense. For instance, she's resting in a hospital bed, and we've got the context of the police are investigating her for murdering her husband, and it's like, well, that doesn't make sense, because all you have to think about is, well, where do they find her? Where do they find the husband? Even if you were to entertain the idea that he pushed her out the window, that's that requires a lot of strength and a lot of adrenaline to go through their body when they were shot point blank range in the stomach. Almost you don't have enough.
That still doesn't explain the whole daughter thing too. Or
It doesn't explain the daughter thing too, and it also doesn't explain the fact that, well, even if she did shoot him and she did push him out, how did she drop the gun away from the window, right? Why wasn't it out on the ground by her body, or why wasn't it not on a part of the awning that's on the second story that she bounced off of? There's all those aspects of it. And so, yeah, you have all these other things that, yeah, maybe your general person, like your teenager, might not know that stuff. But an adult who's watched the 6 o'clock news, for a few years, or read stuff in articles and crimes on social media and the internet these days, are going to be like, yeah, that's too convoluted for cops in current day to think that this didn't happen.
Would it be better in this script to simplify it? Or would it be better to just give it one more layer of confusion to give it more credibility? Like I said, while you were in this coma, we found all this money or this missing stuff or whatever. What the hell's going on? And then she goes into panic mode. She's trying to contact her kid, and so then she breaks out of the hospital bed.
Ideally, you want something more in questions. So, for instance, it'd be like, you'd have them not necessarily interrogate her, but basically say, listen, we found you outside on the ground, gun in your hand. That we know at the scene, the gun wasn't in her hand when she was thrown out the window. So then that leads us to believe, the guys that were in there that killed the guy grabbed the gun, went outside, found her, put it in her hand to cement the frame. All you need to do is that. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. They found her outside on the ground, covered in glass. The gun that killed her husband is in her hand. We know it's registered to her. They say it's registered to her. That gives them plausibility to pursue an investigation saying, we think you killed your husband. We don't know how the heck you got thrown out the window. We can only speculate onto that. But what's going on, right? But they didn't give us that information. They just said they found her, and then and that the gun was at the scene of the crime. And it's all done passively. It's all done passively in dialogue, and it's not convincing enough to actually make me as an audience member, and I don't think the general audience, believe that these cops would be dumb enough to think that they would follow up through an investigation with so many red herrings thrown, and so much doubt thrown in the circumstances from when we last saw them. Because if they just said, yeah, when your neighbors called, said they noticed a domestic. Okay, that's point one in their favor for, okay, maybe she killed him. And then point two would be, when we got into the scene, we found you outside with a gun in your hand. We saw, and you're covered in glass. So we entered the premises. We searched through the house. And we found your husband in your bedroom, 2 gunshot wounds in the stomach next to a broken window. That makes sense. But we don't get any of that. So we're completely, like, this whole, she's on the run. She's being investigated stuff is hanging by a very thin, frayed thread. It just,
and that distracts, and that's going to distract us for the rest of the film for everything else. So
well,
we needed a better foundation for the
exactly.
reason for the rest of the story, is what you're saying.
Because that's what's hanging all this up. So as soon as she breaks out of the hospital, and she breaks out of the hospital with the help of another doctor. So we have another surgeon that's introduced, who is friends with David, and they've never met before, but they talked about each other constantly. So she knows who he is through her husband and whatnot. And he gives her some needles to address her ailment, like, if she gets shot, she can inject this this glue type substance in to help speed up the coagulation of her blood so that she doesn't bleed out. But then he takes her to the morgue, opens up the chest where her husband is there, but again, he's supposed to be in a casket at a funeral, but not, so he's there. She grieves over him, whispers, "You are going to be a dad." She obviously miscarried because she was thrown out a window when she found out she was pregnant. So she's on a motherly, vengeful warpath. And what ends up happening is, like, the doctor literally says, you need to be under observation. We need to make you comfortable. But she's saying, if I've only got 4 to 5 hours left to live, I'm going to find out where my daughter is and get her back. And that's her mission, and the doctor just helps her, and he helps her by basically wrapping her entire face and some of her arms in gauze so that he can wheel her out of the hospital without anyone knowing it's her.
Hold on, didn't she get a hold of her daughter on the phone?
She did, but then the phone then cuts out.
Oh, so she never got that far to know that she was really okay or where she was.
Well, like, she knew where she was. She's like, I'm with Aunt Karen, I think it was, and things are weird. I don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, the line disconnects. And the way it's written, I had to reread it a few times because it disconnects actually on Lola's side, but it also feels like it disconnected on Izzy's side because she's using this hospital phone, and then the doctor finds her and then grabs the receiver and hangs it up. So you're a little confused, but the way that the story plays out is she gets out of the hospital, she steals an ambulance, she drives it to her sister-in-law's, gets out, steals a cane from an old guy, a wooden cane from an old guy on the street, breaks it in half to fashion a shiv of sorts, enters her sister-in-law's apartment, can't find her daughter, but she does find her sister-in-law who had been stabbed multiple times in the chest. And so now her daughter's officially kidnapped. And this takes a while to get to. Like, we're already well into the past the first act, a little bit into the second, when this is happening. And so she is just like, she's freaking out. She's super upset. She's getting this kind of burst, what's described as bursts. So this is when the adrenaline kind of runs through, which gives her strength and stuff. She manages to go out to the alleyway, and she finds a skinny guy, who's described as wiry, small, and skinny, and then a big guy just hanging out there by a Bugatti motorcycle. And so she goes all Terminator on them. She's like, I want your bike. And they're like, no.
Give me your bike and your clothes.
Well, that part comes after. Like, first she's like, I just want your bike. And they're like, nah, maybe give us a sexual favor, we'll do it. She's like, no. And then they go to attack her. Her burst comes in. She hits the big guy in the throat, knocking his Adam's apple, I guess, into his esophagus, causing him to asphyxiate. So takes him out. And then skinny guy's a skinny guy. She's a cop, so she kind of takes him out relatively easy. And then says, "I want your boots, your pants, and your bike." And he hands him over. So in the next, and we get a smash cut to him in his t-shirt and underwear, and then she's wearing his clothes, and and a bike helmet, and then she's driving off. And yeah, it's just a convoluted mess where she manages to reconnect with her dad, who's got a burner phone for her. Says, "I know you didn't kill your husband. I know you're looking for your kid. Things are complicated. Here's a burner phone. We'll coordinate a way. do you know what's going on? Then she brings up the Firebird that we saw at the ceremony where she got promoted. And she's like, this character, this guy named Yahya Ahmed was in there. And it's like, whoa, you're introducing this character like 40 pages, 38 pages into the script. And it's like, yeah, he was from my old, the days when I was much younger. He was outside. I'm going to go see him. He probably knows where my kid is. And we're like, well, this is now getting really convoluted because there's no establishment that this Ahmed guy knows where her kid is. This is all just an assumption based on a gut feeling. I'm not entertained by that. This is the writer telling us this is where the story is going, whether you like it or not, and whether it makes sense or not.
Convenient plot. What do you call it? A movement. Where it's like, we're just going to do this thing because we're doing this thing.
It's a movement, all right, a bowel movement, because it just doesn't.
Well, I just glanced at. I'm trying to keep track of where you're at on the script. I saw that she even put a helmet on when she stole the bike, and I was like, oh, that's nice. Safety first.
Safety first, yeah. Oh, I forgot. She's also handed a mini oxygen tank and mask because she needs extra oxygen in order to function properly throughout all this endeavor. So so. Here's the part that really bugged me with the script. We never know when she's wearing the oxygen mask and when she's not wearing the oxygen mask. Because there's some parts where like she's into a fight and someone hits her so hard that it knocks out her tooth. And then the next part of the action line, she lowers her mask so that she can like spit or something. And it's like, well, is the tooth in the mask then? Because the mask would have caught that. But no, when I went back and reread it, not only did the guy knock her in the face so hard that her tooth came out, the tooth went flying in the air and then went into the mouth of another goon who choked on it for a second. And I'm just like, okay, so her mask was off then? But then why is she dropping it down? Like, it's the continuity.
That's what you catch in rewrites. So that tells me that there wasn't a lot of rewrites going on here. You should have caught that.
So it's also basically just for the imagery. It's like, oh, I think it'd be really cool if she got hit so hard that her tooth came out and choked on a guy. It's like, yeah, that'd be kind of cool, but you're forgetting that you got her wearing an oxygen mask.
I agree with the imagery, but you got to write around that mask. Like that mask already got knocked off. That's an easy fix. So that's what I'm saying. That's a rewrite. That's just a little polish. That shouldn't have been that hard to catch. Like, what do you think? How many rewrites for your average script? How many rewrites do you do? I know it's kind of hard to determine a full rewrite, but what do you think? 3 to 5 rewrites to get it to where you want it, or more?
Oh, way more. You're always constantly rewriting because you're always trying to make every scene the best it can be because every scene is competing for attention with all the others. And even the ones that you're trying to build up to make another feature scene really, really good and dynamic, you have to still make that scene really, really good. You cannot... there's no room to afford the audience taking the stuff that's going to happen on the page or on the screen for granted. You've got to make sure that every word, everything is useful. The last 3 scripts I've written on my own, I've had at least 10 rewrites for. And then the stuff I've done with partners has been in the high 20s, early 30s, where we're just constantly catching new stuff and things to work out to make sure that everything flows logically, but then at the same time trying to hide the fact that we're doing it logically so that you as an audience member don't see what we're doing, cannot tell our hands moving the pieces on the chessboard, so to speak. This guy did not do any of that.
Okay, yes, definitely. That's what it sounds like. So you're saying, though, you spend more time in rewrites than you do by far on rewrites than you do on the original, writing the original script and getting it plotted out and getting it outlined and everything. Is that fair?
Yeah, because when you do an outline, you're pretty much nailing down your plot and your basic character actions and motivations and all that type of stuff. So yeah, that's the heavy lifting. The rewrites are always just the finer details to make sure everything makes sense, to make sure that you haven't missed anything. In many cases, the outline is your guiding post. You're not necessarily going to land at the exact same ending that you outlined. You might end up on a better ending, or maybe you've got a different ending that works just as well. But you've done all the heavy lifting beforehand so that now you can actually focus on the little details. And then there's some people that do the stream of consciousness where they just hit the script and then they write it and they're like, okay, that's it. And then they go in and tweak up things here and there, but they're not actually viewing the script and the story as a whole to see if point A connects to B, C, D, E, F, G by the end. It's very, very common aspect I've seen in a lot of early and terrible writers. The early writers usually learn it and get better. The terrible writers always repeat it.
So I just want to clarify. You're saying that they might write a specific scene really well, but they don't go back up to a bird's eye view and help all the pieces come together to a very fluid and flowing script. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't see that too often. Like this one
Okay.
here, there's a couple of scenes where when she goes to Ahmed's place, and Ahmed has this club where apparently it's a real thing. I've never heard of it, but it's where you can go. You pay a fee, you go in. It's like an arcade, but instead of video games, you get handed tools like sledgehammers and bats and stuff, and you get to break old technology and windows and things there.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that, but I've never experienced that. But yes, I've
Yeah.
heard, it's like a stress reliever, kind of a fun thing that you just go
Sort of,
destroy
but the
stuff.
thing is, this is clearly an underground one where there's no safety protocols in place. Like they don't give you safety goggles or anything.
Oh,
of
you don't
that
get
nature.
safety glasses or gloves or anything.
No, it's just like, yeah, come on in,
Okay.
break an old computer from 1995. So she goes in there and she's asking around, and of course the big muscles like, yeah, we're not going to entertain you of that nature, and then she has to beat a bunch of them up, but then she passes out because her adrenaline rush wears off, and when she wakes up, not only is the doctor that helped her escape from the hospital there, but Ahmed is there being like, hey, yo, we're what's going on? I'm straight-ish now. I'm not a bad guy anymore. And yeah, I was gonna say, hey, how you doing over on the at the ceremony, but I figured I'd stay out of it because I didn't want to risk my own kid. And you find out that the guy who killed her husband is the little brother of the dude that's in jail, who is also the father of Lola. And we find out that Izzy,
Whoa.
before she became a cop, she was a bank robber and criminal with this tight crew. And Roman, her baby daddy, took the fall for her killing a guard at a big bank heist. That's the big bank heist in question, and so that she could take care of their daughter, who was like 1 year old at the time. So it's this really convoluted mess of
Yeah. Do I
bad
want?
guy
I mean,
becoming good
I
guy
want to.
cop.
I want to ask you to clarify all that, but I feel like it'd be a waste of time. That was very. I did not understand even half of what you just explained there. It was so fast. I know.
It
So-
comes in fast. So she was she was a career criminal whose father was a cop, and I guess
Okay.
they didn't get along too well. Then after she had her child with Roman, the guy in question, the guy who's going into for the appeal, they rob a bank for several $1,000,000, and she kills a guard there, but they get arrested. Her father covers up the fact that she killed a guard, and her baby daddy decides, I'm going to take the fall. I'm going to say I shot the guard. I will go to jail so that you can raise our kid, right? That's the context here. And then
But if her dad already covered it up, why does he need to take the fall for it? I don't understand.
well, basically the cover up is the fact that he helped orchestrate so that he could take the fall. You can't hide the fact that the guy was dead,
Oh,
but
you
who's
just
the
have
one
to
that
shift
killed
the
him?
blame. Gotcha.
I'm going to
Okay,
cover up
gotcha.
that my daughter killed him, and I'm going to work with her baby daddy to make it look like he killed him.
I'm with
That
you.
type of cover up. And so apparently some of the money from that heist was missing in evidence, and from that point on, from that altruism, if you want to call it that, from her father, she decided she's going to become a police officer, and she's been a cop for the last 15 years or 14 years. And it's like, okay, weird. I don't buy it, but okay.
All right. Yeah, it seems convoluted to me, but okay.
But
I'm with
now
you.
that it's been all these years later, the little brother who's upset is like, his plot is, I'm going to bust my big brother out, and I'm going to get the money that went missing from evidence, because that's our payday, so where we can go live our lives and do what we want to do. Why he involved Izzy in this is because he thinks she knows where the money is, but she doesn't. So
Okay.
it's a bunch of it's a Three's Company. It's all a misunderstanding plot.
Come and knock on my door. So you're saying that at this point in the story, not even we as the viewer know what the hell is going on with this money.
No, we don't know what's going on with this money. We don't really care so much, because the whole goal for Isabella is, or sorry, not Isabella, for Izzy, her name's Elizabeth, but God, it's weird. For Izzy is that she just wants to get her daughter back. So that's what's driving the story. The whole money stuff is a background plot. Other people care about. She does not. She just wants to get her kid back.
So far, I know this is a weird show because of everything that's been going on, but so far the only person I care about right now is her poor dead husband who didn't get a proper funeral, is stuck in a freaking, an ice cube somewhere.
In a
And had
morgue.
nothing to do with any of this, and got shot in the stomach twice, which they say is one of the most painful ways to die.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't even get a chance, right, to know that he was a dad.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep.
So yeah, he's the one that I empathize with the most. As a normal functioning human being in Western society, he's the guy that I relate to the most in this story. So I don't think that was probably the intent of the writer.
No, it's not. And the fact that he tries to make us feel for Izzy because she's mortified that her husband's dead and that she's very determined to get her daughter back. And it's like, well, these
Okay.
kind of the elements are there on the paper, but the empathy is kind of missing. And I think the empathy is missing by the fact that the cops have accused her of murdering her husband because the story says so, and her reaction to it is not one of
I feel like this is a
confusion and
reverse Crow.
sadness.
I feel like this is a reverse Crow. I love the Crow. I love Brandon Lee and Bruce, and I feel like this is what's going. Like he died on All Hallows Eve, right?
Yep.
And he watched her die, and then they killed him, or they raped her. I'm trying to remember the order of everything. But anyway, it's horrible, right? And then he comes back for revenge, and that story was very similar to this. We had a pregnancy and all this stuff, and I'm like, this feels like a not as good a version of the Crow, the movie, not the comic.
A supernatural element would have helped it, I think, on the verisimilitude side of things.
Well, I just think the motivation and the empathy with the lead character. If she was pregnant, she told him. And they had this sweet moment, and then these guys kick in the door, and he was the one with the history, and they shoot her in the stomach, which makes it even worse because she was pregnant, right? He just found out she was pregnant, and so she gets shot in the stomach twice, and then everything else is very similar, right? But we just flip these genders. I feel like it would have been a better story right there, just right there.
Right.
I'm like these bastards. He was going to be a dad, and they killed his baby and his wife, and he wakes up and gets slapped in the face with this information. On top of that, they framed him like what we do with what you did, right? Where it looks like he did kill her, and now he has to spend the rest of it like finding his other kid and proving his innocence. Like I feel like that right there would have made this a more interesting story.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's got aspects of that nature, but again, it's got a little bit of a Crow. It's got more of the Crank type of aspect too, because she's writing down like how many hours she has left to live, so to speak. She's got it written on her arm. She steals a watch.
Okay, that's cool.
And
I like
so
that. That's cool.
So
And she's looking around an oxygen tank this whole time. Is that correct?
yeah, it's one of those like 12-inch, 6-inch diameter oxygen tank type of deals. The mini
So
ones.
is it in a backpack or like how's she carrying this thing?
First she's carrying it loose, and then when she gets it damaged and has to get it replaced by good old Ahmed, she gets it thrown in like a Lululemon bag or a Coco Melon bag or one of those kid show bags.
Okay.
That's thrown over her shoulder because again he's
I like that.
taking stuff from his daughter to help her out. So
Yeah,
that's
I like that. I like that, and I like the thing where you said she was writing the stuff on her arm. I like that too. That's cool. I'm down with. That's what I feel like. There's parts of this that are really cool and unique, but then other parts of it just fall really flat.
Well, the Ahmed character is basically in the Oracle. He knows everything that's going on. Like, even though he was asked to help with the whatever the plan is that the brother wants to do. Now, the brother's name is Jules. Very masculine name, of course. He's basically trying. His plan is he's going to break his older brother Rome out of jail on his way to his appeal hearing, and then they're going to find the money somehow and then take off to Canada and hide there. And Ahmed knows all this. Ahmed knows it so well that when Izzy wakes up and is updated with what's been going on, he's like, yeah, you're going to find Jules and his mom in this apartment building at this part of town, and this is the apartment number, and there's going to be some guards out there. So, yeah, there you go.
And how does he know this? And
Don't
why
know.
is it so easy?
Yeah, exactly.
We never get an answer to that.
No, we never get an answer to that. Apparently,
That's
like, he's
terrible.
gone straight-ish, but he still has some criminal ties and connections, and it's all supposed to be taken at face value. And it's really silly. And then, of course, he takes her to the check-in desk where you get to check out the smashing weapons to break your stuff, and he flips the switch, and of course the wall slides open, and it's just an armory of guns in all various sizes and forms, and she grabs what she can. And then we've got a scene that is very reminiscent of Old Boy, where she goes through the hall with a wrench duct taped to her hand and just beats up 10 guys to get to the apartment. And it's just a repeat of, it just kind of repeats those beats over and over again until she gets knocked out by Jules, and then she's reunited with her daughter. she then tells her daughter the truth. Yes, you're the daughter of the criminal that's, on the news and everything like that.
Because she didn't know who her dad was.
Because she didn't know. She also didn't care.
Okay.
And then they get separated again. and basically Jules says, Izzy, you're going to help me execute the rescue of my brother from his appeals trial. And they're going to do that with the armored trucks by basically blocking off a section of the Brooklyn Bridge or the Hudson Bridge, I think. And then just break him out that way.
Hold on, though. Before that, was there an obligatory torture scene to get the information about the money from Izzy first?
Kind of. Not really, but like kind of. Like just talking to her about where the money might be. And what ends up happening is that Jules gets sent a surveillance photo of a man pulling out a duffel bag, the duffel bag that they recognize from the job, which, again, this is a job we have never seen in the script. Like, it's all being told to us that this job went down. So he hands her the photo. He's like, see, recognize the duffel bag? That's from our job. And who's the man that's got the duffel bag? Oh, it's Izzy's father. So he has stolen the evidence.
I was about to say that. I'm like, was it her dad?
It's the dad. The dad has stolen the money. He squirreled it away.
It was for his grandkid. It was for his granddaughter's college fund, you guys. It was for a good cause.
100%. Sure. That is exactly what he said it would be for.
It was? Are you serious?
I'm serious, yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
Again,
this up. That's
the script borrows so much from other stories that have done it better. You are always going to be ahead of it. Now, I'm not even going to spoil the final part, but I'll put it to you this way. You've got like an Italian job type heist, in on the highway. They have a metal saw cutter to cut open the bus that roams on to help him get escape. Izzy is getting her adrenaline burst so that she can do cool stunts on the
So
Bugatti.
She agreed to help.
Oh yeah, she agreed to help because it's like you help, you get your daughter back, and you get to go whatever.
Okay,
like,
gotcha.
That's
the daughter's
exchange.
leverage still. Okay, got it.
And it's a very weak. It's very weak in my opinion. I just did not buy it. But that's what happened. And and so while they like pull off the rescue, so to speak, Rome is shocked to see that Izzy's there, part of the rescue, because he didn't want her involved. He didn't know anything was going on. He's like, what's going on? This is all weird. They try to write him as if he's even though he's a criminal that's willing to kill, he's sort of an upright guy, which is weird. But basically he hops on the bike with Izzy, and Izzy just takes him away. So like those two have like made off, and Jules doesn't have his brother anymore. So now she's got this guy. And what they end up doing is they drive to her dad's house. And while he's there, that's where he reveals, yes, I took the money. I squirreled it away in case of emergency. Since your mother died, I wanted to make sure it was for family. He then says, I'm dying too because I've got stage 4 lung cancer from all the smoking he's done. And apparently his secondhand smoke killed his wife as well, because she died from stage 4 lung cancer too. There's some bitterness between Izzy and her dad as a result of that. And Rome is just there like, oh, that dude, I didn't want my daughter involved in any of this stuff. I wrote her letters. I didn't think you'd give them to my kid, blah, blah, blah. I just want to, go live my own life somewhere else. I'll leave you. I never wanted you guys involved. Doesn't matter, because Weems comes in, Captain, and she ends up shooting the dad. And it turns out that the captain is the one that leaked the surveillance photo of her dad with the money to Jules. So then she's been working with this family to get her cut from it. And it's like, oh, we're going this far now. We're going this deep into how many other people are like on the take, how much corruption is going on here. It's like all crazy.
Spider-Man meme where there's all three of them pointing at each other.
Exactly. Pretty much. It's a ridiculous script, and it's not really in the fun, ridiculous nature, unfortunately. It's just like
just to explaining it makes me feel exhausted. It doesn't feel fun. It feels exhausting.
And yeah, even though like there's some other cops that come involved and they're trying to defend Izzy with regards like we don't believe that she's a criminal or whatnot. This is what ends up happening is like Weems and Izzy get into a fight outside. Of course, Izzy kills her and takes the car to find.
Did she kill her Roadhouse style? Rip her throat out? with her
No,
strength?
it's basically just emptying the magazine of the pistol into her. And
What? You didn't even get to use her cool strength to kill the.
no,
that was
she
a
used her
waste right
cool
there.
strength so that she could crawl from inside the house to outside the house, rise to her feet to grab the gun and then shoot him. Rome's been already taken. He left to go to where the money's been hidden in a cabin in the woods because, of course.
Wait, he got away from the cops? Oh yeah.
Yes,
she was
because
dirty.
he's
You know, okay.
technically he didn't know he was working with Weems, but now he does, and then she's letting him go so that he can go get the money. Then she's going to meet up with them. They're going to split their share 3 ways between the 2 brothers and her. And then
And what's the total? What's the total amount? What's all this? What's this all for?
I think
wanna
around
know
4
the
million
ultimate.
bucks. Yeah.
$4 million split 3 ways
Yeah.
for all of this mess.
So yeah, 1 and change.
Ugh.
So,
Okay.
so of course with Weems dead, then basically we get into the climax, which is, listen, you guys can predict exactly how it's going to go down. Lola goes to the cabin, and
Okay.
oh, it's not Lola. Lola is at the cabin. Izzy goes to the cabin to rescue her daughter, and kill Jules and all of the goons that are out there working for him in a very kind of commando, like Arnold Schwarzenegger commando type scene, with even some artillery similar to what you see in Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando. And lucky for her, she's got the adrenaline and epinephrine bursts to help her carry some of the weapons that she's using in this thing. How it ends, does she die? That's kind of up in the air.
All right.
I'll put it to
I'll
you
have
that
to
way.
read the ending because from what I'm seeing as I've been trying to follow you throughout this script, it just seems like they definitely highlight the time. I do like how the writer highlighted the time with like different highlight colors inside the script as she looks at the clock. I think that's kind of unique. I haven't seen that in a script where they highlight it in a color. I don't know is that kosher to do on a script when studios are reading your scripts that you have little highlights in there?
It's
Or
just
is
a new
that bad?
technique that Final Draft has incorporated to allow you to draw eyes and focus and attention to something. Most of the times you used to have to bold and underline it, but a lot of weak writers are bolding and underlining so much in their script that it kind of gets lost in the minutia. So now they've added in this part where you can actually highlight certain aspects of the script or insert images, insert.
So that's gonna get overused instead. It'll just be the next
It
level.
might. 5-6 years ago, I got a number of amateur scripts where there was pink text all over the place, for no reason, and it's like, okay, like yes, it draws my eyes to those words, but it doesn't keep me focused on what the actual story is going on. So it's really just a cheap technique for people to make up for the fact that their own use of language is not strong enough to bring you in. But it's
Yeah, and
also
it's-
at the same
it's like
time
any-
is to prevent the studio execs that want things explained to them like they were from being upset, because now you've given them essentially a storybook with fancy colors and shapes for them to look at and flip through.
That's because that's where we're at now in society anyway. So I guess that makes sense.
In
I
at least
just-
a corner of it, yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and I just keep thinking like it's like anything in life, especially creative wise, is you can use a tool as something to augment or enhance something, or you can use it if you overuse it or misuse it, it'll turn into a distraction.
Oh yeah,
And
every good tool is subject to abuse.
Right.
So and this is no different. But yeah, that's this script. When I was reading
Where
it,
did
I'm
this-
like looking at this like, okay, this is like a C movie schlocky comedy, unintentional comedy script. And I'm thinking
Yeah.
for that it would work, and a lot of audiences might really gravitate towards that. However, those types of scripts are part of the reason of how we got to where we are today in entertainment.
And where did this rank on the blacklist? I didn't hear that part.
Oh,
You guys started.
yes. So this ranked on the blacklist as 51, place 51 out of like 70 odd scripts that were selected overall. Only got 9 votes. But I don't think it's really worthy of the blacklist, but I understood why. One thing I will say to all the listeners out there, so if you want to know how we kind of got to this thing where we've got not only just female-led actioneer films and very convoluted stories and things of that nature. Take a look at movies that did not have a theatrical run but went pretty much straight to DVD between 2005 and 2012. And you'll see a lot of derivative, same crappy stuff. A lot of those plots you'll find very, very familiar, not just amongst themselves, but also among the quote-unquote girl boss movies of current era. Because those movies sold to a degree, and because there was an audience, I would say, appreciation for them, those formulas were then used to be the foundation of the next generation of action movie formulas. So when you take a look at the stuff that you see on television, like with the Batwoman series or the Arrowverse stuff, or the Rookie Blue procedural shows, they're all kind of loosely inspired by that period of straight to DVD B, C, D level movies. And
I'm thinking of Barbed Wire. That was a good one. I liked
Barbed Wire was a good decade before that, but that's
hey, it was amazing because you know who was in it, right?
Yes, it's Pamela Anderson and her attempt to try and do her own take on Casablanca in the future.
yeah, it was so bad it was good. I just remember watching that.
But that's your schlocky type of thing. Like those are fun when they're sparse between the pantheon of movies that are released every year. We had such a concentration of it between 2005 and 2012 that it kind of influenced some of the larger budgeted stuff. I mean, John Wick, the first one is great, but when you watch some of the subsequent ones, they go into that B, C, D movie level of ridiculous plottingness. It's schlocky, it's silly, but because it's done by professionals and it's done cleanly, and it's got some decent actors coming in there, it hides a lot of the egregious mistakes that you'd otherwise see in a far cheaper production. So that's where we are. And this script kind of fits right into this, because this script alone, I would say, 2014, this would be one of your top tier straight to DVD movies that people would be like, this is ridiculous and fun and silly, but look how cool, the kills are and on the set pieces, and how she beats up all those guys in that hallway, and which would most likely be done in a single take because directors are hollow and predictive that way.
And a shaky cam, don't forget.
Shaky cam to hide some of the choreography that they couldn't connect with because it would cause injury and eat up an insurance day.
And half the lights broken and the other half flickering.
Maybe
on, we could do that.
Who knows? It might have also been the type of movie that would have had a green tint over it, kind of like The Matrix did.
Or a blue tint. Come on. Oh, no, let's do like a red tint because,
red tint's actually already on the horizon right now. For some stuff. So unfortunately, that we have to deal with that, guys. But yeah, that's what this is. And it's like, okay, I think what hurts this script is the fact that it tries to be serious when the premise is so ridiculous you should really lean into it. Like, that's why I appreciated a movie like Crank and Crank 2. They knew their movie was ridiculous.
Yeah, and they leaned into it. Yep,
and they leaned into it. This one here doesn't want to admit that this movie and premise is ridiculous.
Yeah, this sounds like Heat. You've seen Heat.
I've seen Heat, yes.
Heat was fantastic with the layers that we had in that, but it was... it feels like it's trying to have that and also be Crank at the same time. So I can see it. Is there a world where you could successfully make those two meet, if I could talk? Could you do it? Could you write that script?
Everything has potential to be done. You just have to find the angle that makes it worth it. And those angles are really difficult.
Michael Bay. We just need Michael Bay, and this could happen. Perfect.
Well, Michael Bay could shoot it, but I don't think he's got the chops as a director to make it work. Anything can be, any combination of genres, movies, and stuff can be combined. Whether it's going to be good or bad depends really on if the guy can do it. And
so, what is that secret sauce then? Like, how do shows like, I don't know, Snakes on a Plane, right? Sharknado, they're so bad, but yet they become sort of iconic, versus ones that I can't even think of one right now that we just would completely hate because I forget those on purpose because they were so bad. What is the difference? Is it they just come out at the right place at the right time? Is it they just go viral because a few key people start pushing it out there and everyone's like, it's so bad, it's good, go see it, and everyone else just jumps on that bandwagon? What is it?
I wish I knew. I guess it was just good timing. People wanted something fun and cheesy, and they just wanted that distraction. They were looking for something to make them cheer and laugh, which I'm not opposed to. I think those are the best types of movies you can. If you can get someone to cheer and laugh at your film, you're doing something right. If you get them to come back to watch it again and again and again, you've captured lightning in a bottle. And those things, it's a rarity to land. I mean, Snakes on a Plane was definitely a funny premise, but the premise was far better than anything the people working on that film could come up with. And the same thing is true for Cocaine Bear. Like, Cocaine Bear is a brilliant premise, but they did nothing fun with that premise at all. It was a very safe, lazy film. And this one here too, I'm like, you've given me, okay, you got a female cop who's got a brain hemorrhage, 4 hours to live, and when the body chemistry right now is giving her immense strength for short bursts of time, but each time she has it, it's actually killing her. I'm on board. Now show me how that serves to her advantage, and show me how that serves to her disadvantage, and make it really, really fun.
Yeah, and she's crippled because she has to carry this oxygen tank around like it's a little baby. Like, I love that. That gives it that extra twist where it's like, now every time she gets in a fight, every time she jumps out a window, every time she jumps on a motorcycle, she has to do something with this oxygen tank. And that gives it just this one extra layer of like, okay, that's funny. That's creative, right? Like, you get to have fun with that.
Yeah, like put it into a sling, throw it over her shoulder, let her kind of run with it.
See how she can use it as a weapon.
Well, she does use it as a weapon a couple of times, and it doesn't. I mean, it works, but it's kind of an easy cheat. And then when it gets shot, and then the oxygen kind of spews out. Like, luckily they don't blow it up like a Jaws thing, but it kind of spews out, and it spews out kind of longing, like short. It's not a quick release where normally it would be, because again, it's pressurized gas. It should be shooting out kind of like a hard stream, like a power washer. It doesn't do that. It's not described as doing that in the script. The other part too is like, that's your gimmick. It's like, oh, she needs oxygen in order to take advantage of the adrenaline rush at the same time. So if she has only the adrenaline rush but no oxygen, she can't do anything. Great. So you keep on finding interesting ways to take out her oxygen and finding new ways to get pure oxygen in her bloodstream so that she can keep going. They don't do that. They don't have fun with that. Like Crank, that was a cool thing. He has to keep on taking adrenaline shots or getting his heart rate at a high rate so that it keeps pumping the blood, so that the poison in his blood can kind of work itself out, and hopefully he can survive.
Yeah.
But they don't.
Such a fun movie. That movie was a blast.
Yeah, but it's a blast because it's absolutely ridiculous. Because again, you also have, whenever he calls his doctor is doing clearly illegal stuff, but he's also very brilliant at what he does. Like, I think you meet him at like a rub and tug in the first movie, and then I can't remember what he's doing for the second one, but I'm pretty sure it's like illicit recreational pharmaceuticals or something of that nature. He's skeevy doctor, but he's, it leans into the silliness of it. I mean, the other part too, Jason Statham's cover is that he's a computer programmer for a video game company. It's like, the guy does not look, act, or anything like a computer programmer. That is the most BS cover and lazy cover story ever for a guy like him. But it's done deliberately because it's supposed to be stupid.
Well, I'll tell you what. One recommendation I would make for a good version of this that a lot of people overlooked is Boss Level.
Right.
That movie is incredible. It came out during COVID. I'm pretty sure it came out in 2020 on Amazon. On Hulu. And a lot of people just didn't go to theaters, and people just didn't even know it existed. And what's the actor's name again? Remind me, script.
Well, according to it's Frank Grillo and Mel Gibson were in it. Also with Michelle Yeoh. So it's got a decent cast, yeah.
And it had it had Mel as the bad guy, and it's the first time I'd seen Mel in like a decade, and I was like, oh my gosh, Mel Gibson, I miss this guy, and he plays a pretty good bad guy.
Yeah.
And that film is Groundhog Day meets The Matrix. Like, it's so good, it's so fun. They do have some emotional stuff with his son and stuff, which you buy. You're like, okay, this is good, but it never takes itself so completely seriously that it ruins the fun of it. And just the opening scene, I would say anyone that's listening, just watch the opening scene, give it 10 minutes, and if you're not hooked by it, that opening scene is how you start a movie. It's incredible. and I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but I liked it so much that I bought it on Blu-ray. They did release it on Blu-ray, and so I was like, I got that. But it is a fun ride, and it mixes that time travel thing, but it's not really time travel. It's
It's a
more
time
like
loop. Yeah, time
yeah,
loops.
yeah. It's Groundhog Day. It's time loop. He's stuck, and he has to figure out what the hell happened and why. And I think the opening scene, he's on day like 140 or something. He's a ways into it, and he knows exactly what's going to happen. And he has a rough opening to every morning. And I'm like, can you imagine waking up every day to that? I don't want to say more than that, but yeah. There's some people in chat that have seen it. It's a fun one. It's a gem that flew under a lot of people's radar, and it deserved much better. It did deserve a theatrical release. That thing should have made a lot of money. It's got what's the Asian actor from The Hangover 1, 2, and 3, and he was on Community. I love that guy. He's so funny.
Yeah, I remember him.
He-
Ken Young, I think it is, or something.
He's got
Young?
a small bit part as a bartender, and he's great in this small little role. He's great. And then the love interest is what's her face? The actress that I always mistake for Nicole Kidman, but it's not her. But they did a lot of stuff together in the '90s. They look a lot alike. I can't remember her name.
Okay. But
But she plays love interest. But yeah, I do that instead of this. Whatever. This
yes,
script
I
is.
would say that's a I can concur with that recommendation. Read the script. I strongly advise people if they can read the script and then go watch Boss Level and be way more happier.
That's a good contrast. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that you can learn from the script. The first one being is that honor your premise. Number 2, don't be convoluted. There's definitely a lot of descriptions. The style of the action, the way it's described, is pretty good. So I would say there's things you can pick up from there of what this writer has done that work well. I can see that's where his strength was. I can understand why he's been doing the TV procedurals, because he's able to convey some detailed action in a very few words compared to other writers. His dialogue and his plotting is really bad. It's very compartmentalized, all the scenes. While they do tether together loosely, overall they just don't have the flow to make it a cinematic, whether it's in a schlocky style or whether you're trying to take it seriously. It's got a safety to it and a less of a low risk factor to it that fits on television. I think that's where his strengths would be. So for me, this is obviously a pass. I know when Bowtie Chameleon and I were talking, this was going to be a pass for him as well. It's not. I mean, if there were still standards in Hollywood, like proper standards, this would not have made something like The Blacklist. It really wouldn't. So I mean, I don't mean that disrespectfully to the writer. I think he's got some skill to his name, and he's definitely got an imagination. I just think some of the pieces he put in play don't work with his level of imagination to create verisimilitude with the characters. There's some things that are very inventive that he has Izzy do that I know through my decades of experience with women in problem solving, they wouldn't solve the problem that way. And I'm talking about there's a scene where she sets up a whole bunch of grenades to go off at a particular time in a particular manner that a testosterone fueled strategist would definitely think of, but I'm sorry, not a woman. A woman would be a bit more direct and a bit more mama bear, come at me bro type thing, where this guy is like, no, I'm doing it's basically what would a guy do to try and extract a hostage versus what would a mother trying to save her child do. And those are two different things. And even when you have a father trying to save his child, they're always going to go back, well, if the best odds for me to save my kid is to make sure I take out these people first. Sometimes, I'm sorry to say it, but sometimes mothers don't think that way at all. They're more of that, you get in my way, you're dead type of thing. Whereas the father's like, yeah, you get in my way, you're dead, but I'm going to make sure you can't get in my way to begin with.
Yeah, and like where she can Hulk out, it makes more sense too that she's just going to have a direct approach to something like that. So I would say that's more in character for this story. So yeah, it makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I wish I'd have read this in advance. I've had a busy week, so I didn't get to this one beforehand. But I
Well,
feel
that's okay. I
bad that,
appreciate you coming in. It was you offered, it worked out. Bowtie Comedian, of course, expresses his regrets. We are going to get him back once we figure out what was going on with his internet connection there. Because again, while we were doing the test, we do a test a half hour before every show where we go through, make sure all the levels are good, make sure the broadcast is good. Everything was great on his end, and as soon as we went live, well, you guys heard it, and I apologize for that, but we at least were able to talk about the script. He'll be back in the future for sure. We'll get that sorted out. I want to thank you guys for hanging out for this technical difficulties show, which I'll put that in parentheses in the description.
yeah, thanks everyone in chat. We've been reading the chat. I know I have. Thanks for your thoughts and everything.
Yeah, thanks for taking hanging out with us this evening. We are going to call it here. That's all I can really say at this point.
Red light, no green light on this one.
Oh
Red
yeah,
light.
no, this is a hard pass. Do not. Yeah.
Are you ever going to? Be fun is if you. I don't know if this is not kosher within the writing community or the guild, but for fun, have you even thought about like taking some of these mediocre or even the really bad scripts and rewriting at least some highlight points and then coming back and revisiting them and saying, okay, here's what I would do to make it more fun, and then just kind of have a discussion with the chat about it?
No, because they're my competition and I'm not giving them my good ideas. Not the
Gotcha,
chat. The
okay.
chat's not my competition. The writers of those screenplays are. So
Yeah.
like, listen, I was always happy to do things of that nature for the Batwoman stuff because that was just how I was able to build up the credibility that I know what I'm doing. I've already established that at that point. I don't need to volunteer ideas that I could use in my own works far better. And I didn't even use my good ideas for the Batwoman or Star Trek and Discovery reviews at all. I just
STD.
like these are the basics that you would do to avoid that. So yeah, but I completely understood that. However, I will say if you are reading these scripts and you want to try and figure out to solve those problems on your own, it's a good exercise to do internally to get into the flow of writing and formatting a story structure and character beats and whatnot, because then even though those ideas are your own, take them and put them in your own story, your own premise, your own screenplay, and try your best to differentiate it from the one that you kind of quote unquote rewrote a scene from. Because again, it's one thing to pay an homage to something you like or an homage to something you hate that you did better. But if it's too close, people are going to be like, well, I know where you got that from. And they're going to make a stink about it. And I don't want anyone going through that process because it is a pain in the butt. But usually just use it as an exercise method to sort of strengthen up your writing or identify where your skill set is on that, and then work to build up where you think you might be might need to develop more. That's how it works. The best way to write is to first read lots of screenplays and then write itself. And there's lots of advice like my channel here, this type of discussion, talking about stories, how people are receiving and processing the scripts that they read. These are all things you have to consider when you're writing, because again, when you are a writer, once you finish that first draft, you know everything about that story more than anyone else in the world. And when someone reads it, they only have that script to inform them of that story. And if they have questions that you think you put in the script, you probably just didn't put the answers to those questions in as well as effectively as you imagined. And that just requires you to kind of take their notes, take those questions, find out where those gaps appeared from their read, and fill in those gaps so that the next person that reads it doesn't have those same questions, and it's focused more on, again, the best question to have any reader or any audience ask is, what happens next? That's what you want, and not what the heck just happened. So that's my advice for you guys out there.
That nods back to what you were saying earlier. We were talking about that similar thing. Is it's like if the audience has to stop and ask, how'd you phrase it? If they're looking back and saying what just happened versus what's going to happen next, then you're on the wrong path, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because again, movies they're played in real time. If they're not going forward, you're not doing the right job. And even if you want to say, well, what about Pulp Fiction? That's all over the place chronologically. Doesn't matter chronologically where the scenes are in relation to the characters. The beginning's the beginning. he chose to start it there, and he chose to end the movie there. That's your beginning, middle, and end. That's how it works. The fact that it's out of chronological order from the perspective of the characters is immaterial. There's a reason there's a method to his madness, and there's a method to people's madness that do it that way. But wherever you choose to start the story, that is the beginning of that story. And if you want to jump back in time, if you want to go Rashomon or Vantage Point and take those scenes from a different perspective and have them start weeks earlier or months later, you're more than welcome to do that. All you have to do is make sure that while you're doing it, you're not asking yourself what the heck just happened. You're asking what's going to happen next. And with that, I think I'll end it there. Thank you, TJ, for stepping in.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Last minute like that. To everyone out there listening, please join us next week. We got another script on the horizon. Might try and get Bowtie Chameleon back for that one if the schedule works out and his internet works out. If not, we'll have another guest pop in to discuss what we're reading next week. With that, I want to thank you all for listening. Yeah, rough start, but worked out okay, and it's definitely one for the books. And I think it's a pretty good track record. 17 episodes and only one real technical difficulty. So I'm pretty happy with that. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. And never forget, when it comes to great story, it all starts with the script.